The moment Eliza Hartwell stepped off the stagecoach in Bitterroot, Montana territory in the autumn of 1875, two men watched her from opposite ends of the dusty main street, each seeing something entirely different in the slender woman with auburn hair pinned beneath a practical bonnet. Thomas Garrett, a lean trapper with cold gray eyes and a calculating expression, saw a solution to his problem. Winter was coming fast to the mountains, and he needed someone to cook, mend, and warm his cabin during the long frozen months when he ran his trap lines. She looked sturdy enough, and desperate too, judging by the worn edges of her traveling dress and the way she clutched a single small trunk. Perfect. Come spring, he could send her on her way with enough money to keep her quiet about the arrangement. Nathaniel Cross saw something else entirely. Standing in the doorway of the mercantile where he had come to sell his furs, the mountain man felt his breath catch in his chest. She moved with quiet dignity despite the exhaustion evident in every line of her body. When she lifted her face to survey the rough settlement, he saw the determination there, the steel beneath the surface. His hands, scarred and calloused from years in the wilderness, tightened on the doorframe. At 32, Nathaniel had long ago resigned himself to a solitary life in the high country, but something about this woman made his heart remember what it felt like to hope. Eliza sensed both sets of eyes on her and straightened her spine. She had traveled over 2,000 miles from Boston after her father's debts had consumed everything, including her mother's jewelry and the small house that had been Eliza's only security. At 23, she had few prospects and fewer illusions about the world's kindness. The teaching position she had been promised through a friend's correspondence had evaporated the moment she arrived. The school had closed 3 weeks prior, the teacher who had written to her having married a rancher and moved 50 miles south. The stagecoach driver deposited her trunk in the dust and tipped his hat. "Good luck to you, miss. Bailey's boarding house is down that way, if you got the coin for it." She did not have the coin. She had $17 to her name and a spine made of New England granite. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady despite the fear coiling in her stomach. Thomas Garrett moved first. He crossed the street with purposeful strides, his fur-lined coat swaying. "Miss, I could not help but overhear. You are seeking employment?" Eliza turned to face him. He was perhaps 40, with a narrow face and thin lips that curved into what was probably meant to be a reassuring smile. Something about him made her skin prickle, but she was in no position to be particular. "I am. I was promised a teaching position, but circumstances have changed. I am Thomas Garrett, a trapper with holdings in the high country. I find myself in need of a housekeeper for the winter months. The work is honest. Room, board, and wages, $30 for the season." It was insultingly low pay, and they both knew it. Before Eliza could respond, a deep voice cut through the autumn air. $40 is standard wage for that kind of work, Garrett. You know that as well as anyone." Eliza turned to see the source of the voice and felt something shift in her chest. The man approaching was built like the mountains themselves. Broad shoulders strained against a buckskin shirt, and his arms showed the kind of muscle that came from swinging an axe and hauling timber. His hair was dark brown, long enough to brush his collar, and his beard was neatly trimmed. But it was his eyes that caught her. Deep brown and surprisingly gentle, they met hers with an intensity that made her breath hitch. Thomas Garrett's expression soured. "This is none of your concern, Cross." "It is when you are trying to cheat a woman fresh off the stage." Nathaniel stepped closer, and Eliza noticed he was at least 6 inches taller than Garrett and twice as broad. "Miss, I am Nathaniel Cross. I run a cabin 15 miles north of here, higher in the mountains. I also find myself in need of help through the winter, but I will pay fair wages, $50 for the season, and I will give you my word you will be treated with respect." "She does not need your interference," Garrett snapped. "The lady and I were conducting business." "The lady has not agreed to anything," Eliza interjected, finding her voice. She looked between the two men, her practical mind racing. Neither option was ideal. Going into the mountains with a strange man, miles from civilization, was dangerous regardless of who employed her. But staying in Bitterroot with no money and no prospects was equally perilous. She studied both faces carefully. Garrett's eyes held a calculating coldness that made her deeply uneasy. Nathaniel Cross, despite his imposing size, had a steadiness about him. His offer was better, certainly, but more than that, something in her gut said she could trust him. I appreciate both offers, she said carefully. Might I have the afternoon to consider? Of course, Nathaniel said immediately. Garrett's jaw tightened. I leave at dawn. If you want the position, meet me at the stable before sunrise. He stalked away without another word. Eliza watched him go, then turned back to Nathaniel. Up close, he was even more imposing. The buckskin shirt revealed forearms corded with muscle, and his hands looked strong enough to snap a branch with ease. Yet he stood at a respectful distance, his expression open and patient. Thank you for your intervention, Mr. Cross. Just Cross is fine. Or Nathaniel, if you prefer. His voice was like river stones tumbling. I meant what I said about fair treatment. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I give you my word. I need help with cooking, preserving meat for winter, and general upkeep. The cabin is solid and warm. You would have your own room with a lock on the door. I would not lay a hand on you. The specificity of his assurance told Eliza he understood exactly what fears would plague a woman in her situation. Why do you need a housekeeper? Surely a man like yourself is accustomed to managing alone. A shadow crossed his face. I am. But I broke 3 ribs last spring in a fall. They healed poorly, and the doctor in town says I need to take the winter easier than usual. No heavy lifting for a spell. I can hunt and manage the trap lines, but I need help with the work around the cabin. Chopping wood, hauling water, that sort of thing. I can teach you what you need to know. His honesty surprised her. Most men would have hidden such a vulnerability. And in the spring, if you want to leave, I will bring you back to Bitterroot and make sure you have enough money to go wherever you choose. If you want to stay longer, we can discuss new terms. You would let me choose? His eyes softened. I would never keep anyone against their will. Eliza made her decision. Perhaps it was foolish. Perhaps she was trusting too much in the kindness she saw in his eyes, but every instinct she possessed said, Nathaniel Cross was a good man. I will come with you. When do we leave? Tomorrow, mid-morning. That will give us time to get supplies and still reach the cabin before dark. He paused. You will need warmer clothes. The mercantile has what you need. I will cover the cost and deduct it from your wages, if that suits you. That is generous, thank you. Get yourself a room at Bailey's tonight. Tell Mrs. Bailey to put it on my account. Get a hot meal, too. You look like you have been traveling hard. Eliza felt unexpected tears prick her eyes at the simple kindness. She blinked them back. You are very kind, Mr. Cross. Nathaniel, he corrected gently. And it is just decency. Come on, I will walk you to the mercantile. As they walked down the dusty street, Eliza was acutely aware of the curious glances from townspeople. Nathaniel seemed oblivious, or perhaps simply accustomed to attention. He was the kind of man people noticed, not just for his size, but for the quiet confidence in his bearing. Inside the mercantile, Nathaniel introduced her to Samuel Chen, the proprietor, a sharp-eyed Chinese man who had owned the store for 15 years and knew everything about everyone in Bitterroot. Miss Hartwell needs outfitting for winter in the high country, Nathaniel said. Sturdy clothes, warm coat, good boots, whatever she needs. Samuel nodded and gestured for Eliza to follow him to the back of the store where ready-made dresses and practical clothing hung on pegs. You're going to work for Nathaniel? He asked quietly. Yes. He's a good man. Best man in these mountains, some would say. Fair, honest, keeps his word. You will be safe with him. The endorsement from this shrewd stranger eased something in Eliza's chest. Samuel helped her select 2 sturdy wool dresses, a heavy coat lined with sheepskin, thick stockings, leather boots that laced to her knees, and a warm shawl. When they returned to the front, Nathaniel was purchasing supplies: flour, salt, sugar, coffee, dried beans. You have a good root cellar? Samuel asked. Stocked full. Potatoes, turnips, carrots, onions. Smoked 2 deer last week, and I've got 3 hams curing. We will do fine. Samuel nodded approvingly, then wrote everything up in a neat ledger. Nathaniel paid in cash, gold coins that gleamed in the afternoon light. It was clear he was not a poor man. Trapping and hunting, done well, could be profitable. Outside, Nathaniel carried her packages. Mrs. Bailey will hold these for you until tomorrow. Get some rest. We have a hard ride ahead. I'm not much of a rider, Eliza admitted. We will go slow. The mare I have for you is gentle. He smiled, and the expression transformed his rugged face. Try not to worry. It will be all right. That night, lying in a clean bed at Bailey's boarding house with her stomach full of beef stew, Eliza stared at the ceiling and wondered what she had gotten herself into. Tomorrow she would ride into the wilderness with a man she had known for mere hours. It was madness. It was dangerous. It was also her only real option. She thought of Thomas Garrett's cold eyes and shuddered. Then she thought of Nathaniel's steady gaze and felt her racing heart calm. She had learned to trust her instincts during the hard years after her father's death. Those instincts had kept her safe more than once. She would trust them now. Morning came cold and clear. Eliza dressed in her new clothes, marveling at the warmth of the wool dress and the sturdy coat. The boots fit perfectly. She braided her hair and pinned it tightly, then collected her small trunk and headed downstairs. Nathaniel was waiting in the front room, and Eliza's breath caught again at the sight of him. In the morning light, he looked even more powerful. He had shaved, revealing a strong jaw, though he had kept the beard neatly trimmed. His buckskin shirt was clean, and he wore a wide leather belt with a hunting knife sheathed at his hip. A rifle rested against his shoulder. "Good morning," he said, his voice warm. "You look ready for the mountains. Thanks to your generosity. Just practicality. Can't have you freezing." He picked up her trunk with ease, as though it weighed nothing, making Eliza marvel again at his sheer strength. "The horses are ready. I packed the supplies last night." Outside, 2 horses waited, a large roan gelding that was clearly Nathaniel's and a smaller buckskin mare with kind eyes. A pack mule stood patiently beside them, laden with supplies. "This is Honey," Nathaniel said, stroking the mare's nose. "She will take good care of you." Eliza approached slowly and held out her hand. Honey snuffed at her palm, then allowed Eliza to stroke her neck. "Hello, girl." Nathaniel secured her trunk to the mule, then turned to help Eliza mount. His hands were gentle but firm as he lifted her into the saddle with effortless strength. She settled herself, arranging her skirts, and took up the reins. "Just follow my lead. If you get tired, tell me. We will stop and rest." They rode out of Bitterroot as the sun climbed higher, turning the autumn landscape golden. Eliza looked back once at the rough settlement, wondering if she would regret this decision. Then she looked ahead at Nathaniel's broad back and felt a strange sense of rightness settle over her. The trail climbed steadily into the mountains. Pine forests closed around them, and the air grew colder and crisper. Nathaniel kept his word about going slowly, stopping frequently to let the horses rest and pointing out landmarks. "That peak there is called Widow's Finger. If you ever get lost, head toward it. My cabin sits in the valley just west of it." "Do people get lost often?" "Only fools who don't respect the mountains." He glanced back at her. "How are you holding up?" "Well enough." Her legs were already aching from the unaccustomed riding, but she would not complain. "We will stop soon for a meal. There's a clearing ahead with a good stream." When they stopped, Nathaniel helped her down, and Eliza's legs nearly buckled. His hands steadied her immediately. "Easy. First day is always hardest. Walk around a bit. It helps." While she paced out the stiffness, Nathaniel built a small fire and put coffee on to boil. He unwrapped bread and cheese from his saddlebag and divided it fairly. They ate in comfortable silence, and Eliza found herself studying him. "You have been in these mountains a long time?" she asked. 15 years. Came out from Pennsylvania after my parents died. My father was a blacksmith, taught me to work hard and keep my word. Always wanted to see the wilderness." He poured coffee into tin cups and handed her one. "What about you? What brings a Boston lady all the way out here?" "Desperation," Eliza said honestly. "My father died 3 years ago and left debts I did not know existed. Everything was sold to satisfy the creditors. I worked as a seamstress, but it was not enough to live on. When a friend wrote about the teaching position, it seemed like providence." "I'm sorry about your father." "I am too. He was a good man, just unlucky in business." She sipped the coffee, which was strong and hot. "This arrangement, it truly is only for the winter?" "Unless you want it to be longer. I won't hold you past spring." He met her eyes. "I know you are taking a leap of faith here. I respect that. I will do everything I can to earn your trust." "You already have, to some degree. I would not be here otherwise." Something warm flickered in his eyes. "I am glad." They rode on, climbing higher. The trees grew denser, and occasionally Eliza spotted wildlife. A deer bounded across the trail, an eagle circled overhead. The world felt vast and wild, so different from Boston's crowded streets. As the afternoon waned, Nathaniel pointed ahead. There, that's home. The cabin sat in a clearing surrounded by towering pines. It was larger than Eliza had expected, built from solid logs with a stone chimney rising from the center. A small barn stood nearby, and she could see a smokehouse and a root cellar built into a hillside. A stream sparkled in the fading light, running past the clearing before disappearing into the forest. "It is beautiful," Eliza said, and meant it. Nathaniel's face lit with pride. "Built it myself, 7 years back. It has weathered some hard winters." He helped her down, and this time Eliza was prepared for the weakness in her legs. She clung to his arm for a moment, feeling the solid muscle beneath the buckskin, then steadied herself. "Let me show you around before we lose the light." The cabin's interior was dim, but surprisingly well appointed. The main room held a stone fireplace, a sturdy table with chairs, shelves lined with supplies, and a comfortable-looking rocking chair. Furs covered the floor, and oil lamps hung from hooks. 2 doors led to smaller rooms. "That is my room," Nathaniel said, pointing to the left. "This is yours." He opened the right-hand door, and Eliza stepped inside. The room was small but cozy, with a narrow bed covered in quilts, a chest of drawers, a washstand with a basin and pitcher, and a small window that looked out toward the stream. A bearskin rug covered the floor. "The lock," Nathaniel said quietly, pointing to the heavy bolt on the inside of the door. "As I promised." Eliza nodded, her throat tight. The care he had taken, the way he had kept every promise, touched her deeply. "It is perfect. Thank you. Get settled. I will tend the animals and start supper." Eliza unpacked her few belongings while listening to Nathaniel move around outside. She could hear him talking to the horses, his voice low and soothing. When she emerged, he was at the fireplace, building up the fire. Flames leaped to life, filling the cabin with warmth and light. "Can you cook?" he asked. "Yes. My mother taught me well." "Good. There's venison in the cold box outside and vegetables in the root cellar. I will show you where everything is tomorrow, but tonight I will handle it. You must be exhausted." Eliza was exhausted, but she was also curious about this man. As he cooked, she watched the way he moved. Despite his size, he was graceful, economical in his motions. His hands, so large and powerful, were surprisingly deft as he chopped vegetables and seasoned the meat. "You cook well for a bachelor," she observed. He grinned. "Had to learn. The alternative was starvation." They ate at the table, venison stew rich with gravy and vegetables, served with thick slices of bread. It was simple food, but delicious. After the long journey, it tasted like a feast. "Tell me about your work," Eliza said. "The trapping, I mean." "I run lines through the high country. Beaver, marten, fox, sometimes wolf. The pelts fetch good prices. I also hunt deer and elk for meat and hides. In summer, I guide hunting parties sometimes for extra income." He refilled her cup with water from a pitcher. "It is hard work, but honest. I like the solitude. Or I did. You do not anymore?" He was quiet for a moment. "Lately I have found myself wanting company, not just for winter, but year-round." The silence got loud, if that makes sense. It does. Eliza understood loneliness. She had felt it keenly in Boston, surrounded by people who saw her as a burden or a charity case. After supper, Nathaniel heated water for washing up while Eliza cleared the table. They worked together in easy silence, and Eliza felt the strangeness of the day beginning to settle into something almost comfortable. "You should rest," Nathaniel said finally. "Tomorrow I will show you the property and we will work out a routine." Eliza agreed, suddenly aware of how bone-deep her exhaustion went. She bid him good night and retreated to her room, sliding the bolt home with a soft click. She changed into her nightgown and crawled beneath the quilts, expecting to lie awake fretting. Instead, she fell asleep almost instantly, lulled by the crackling fire in the next room and the sound of wind in the pines outside her window. She woke to gray dawn light and the smell of coffee. When she emerged, dressed and ready, Nathaniel was already up, bacon sizzling in a pan. "Good morning," he said, smiling. "Sleep well?" "Better than I have in months." "Mountain air will do that. Breakfast will be ready in a minute." Over bacon, eggs, and fresh bread toasted over the fire, Nathaniel outlined the routine. I check the trap lines 3 times a week, usually gone from dawn to mid-afternoon. While I'm out, there's plenty to do around the cabin. Cooking, cleaning, mending. I have pelts that need scraping and stretching, firewood that needs stacking. The chickens need tending. Chickens? In the barn. 6 hens and a rooster. They give us eggs most days. After breakfast, Nathaniel gave her a thorough tour. The barn housed Honey, the roan gelding named Ranger, the mule called Stubborn for obvious reasons, and the chickens in a protected coop. The smokehouse held hanging meat. The root cellar was indeed well stocked with vegetables and preserves. "You did all this yourself?" Eliza marveled. "And I had to. If you want to survive up here, you learn to be self-sufficient." He showed her the woodpile, currently well stocked but always needing more. "I will handle the chopping, given my ribs, but you can stack and carry what you need for the cabin." "I can manage that." They fell into a routine over the following days. Nathaniel left at dawn to check his trap lines, and Eliza managed the cabin. She cooked hearty meals, kept the fire going, gathered eggs, and swept the floors. She discovered she enjoyed the physical work. It felt purposeful in a way her seamstress job never had. When Nathaniel returned each afternoon, often with fresh game or pelts to process, they worked together. He taught her how to scrape hides clean, how to stretch them properly on frames to dry. His patience was endless, and his hands would cover hers gently, guiding her movements until she got the technique right. "That is it. You are a natural." Eliza felt warmth spread through her chest at his praise. She found herself looking forward to his return each day, to the way his face would light up when he saw her, to the sound of his voice as he told her about what he had seen in the mountains. "A bear came sniffing around one of the traps today," he said one evening as they worked side by side, scraping a deer hide. "Big fellow, must have weighed 600 pounds. We looked at each other for a long moment, then he went on his way. I think he was just curious." "Were you frightened?" "Wary. You respect bears, but you don't run. Running triggers the chase instinct." His hands moved steadily across the hide. "Most animals will leave you alone if you give them space." "Most? Mountain lions are trickier, and wolves can be dangerous in packs. But I have been doing this a long time. I know how to read the signs, when to back off." Eliza loved listening to him talk about the wilderness. His knowledge was vast, earned through years of observation and experience. He spoke of the mountains with reverence, as though they were a living thing deserving respect. As October turned to November, the weather grew colder. Snow dusted the peaks and frost glittered on the grass each morning. Nathaniel began preparing in earnest for deep winter, hunting elk to supplement their meat stores, repairing any weak spots in the cabin's walls, making sure they had enough firewood to last through months of snow. Eliza threw herself into the work with determination. She baked bread, churned butter from the cow's milk Nathaniel had purchased from a neighbor 5 miles south, and put up preserves from the wild berries Nathaniel showed her how to find. Her hands, once soft from city life, grew calloused and capable. One evening, as they sat by the fire after supper, Nathaniel carving a new handle for a knife while Eliza mended one of his shirts, he spoke quietly. "You have done well here. Better than I expected, if I'm being honest." Eliza looked up from her sewing. "What did you expect? I thought you might struggle more with the isolation, the hard work, but you have taken to it like you were born to this life." "I surprise myself sometimes," Eliza admitted. "In Boston I felt so constrained. Everything was about appearances and propriety. Here it is about survival and skill. I prefer it." "Do you miss the city?" "Not as much as I thought I would. I miss my mother, but she's been gone 5 years. I miss the idea of society, but the reality was often cruel. Women alone are not treated kindly." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "You are not alone anymore." The intensity in his voice made Eliza's heart skip. She looked at him across the firelight, this strong, kind man who had given her safety and purpose. Over the past weeks, her feelings had been shifting, growing into something deeper than gratitude. "Nathaniel," she said softly, "why did you really offer me this position? Thomas Garrett made his intentions clear enough, but you have been nothing but respectful. What did you want from this arrangement?" He set down his carving and met her eyes. "Honestly? At first, I did need help. The ribs were a real concern. But the moment I saw you step off that stage, I felt something I had not felt in years. Hope. Not just hope for company through winter, but hope that maybe I did not have to spend my whole life alone. He paused. I know that is forward of me. You do not owe me anything beyond the work we agreed on, but I would be lying if I said I have not been hoping you might choose to stay beyond spring. Eliza's pulse raced. Because you need a housekeeper? No. His voice was rough. Because I am falling in love with you. The words hung in the air between them. Eliza set down her mending, her hands trembling slightly. You barely know me. I know you are brave. I know you work hard and do not complain. I know you are kind to animals and you laugh at my terrible jokes. I know that when you smile, it feels like sunshine even on the coldest day. He stood, crossing to kneel beside her chair. I know that every morning I wake up grateful you are here, and every night I dread the idea of spring coming and taking you away. Eliza reached out and touched his face, feeling the rasp of his beard against her palm. I am falling in love with you too, she whispered. I have been fighting it, telling myself it was foolish, too fast, but my heart does not seem to care about logic. Nathaniel turned his head and kissed her palm, and the tenderness of the gesture made tears spring to Eliza's eyes. Then stay, not as a housekeeper. Stay as my partner. My wife, if you will have me. We have known each other less than 2 months. I know. If you need more time, I will wait. I will wait as long as you need. But I know my own heart, Eliza. I know I want to spend every season with you, not just winter. Eliza thought of Thomas Garrett's cold proposition, wanting her only for winter convenience. Then she thought of Nathaniel, offering her his heart for every season of life. The choice was not difficult. Yes, she said, yes, I will marry you. Nathaniel's face transformed with joy. He pulled her from the chair and into his arms, lifting her effortlessly. His kiss was gentle at first, then deeper, filled with all the longing and hope he had been holding back. Eliza melted into him, feeling the solid strength of his body, the warmth of his embrace. She had never felt so safe, so cherished. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Nathaniel rested his forehead against hers. I will make you happy. I swear it. You already do. They married 3 weeks later in Bitterroot. The circuit preacher happened to be passing through, and Nathaniel was not about to let the opportunity slip away. They rode down from the mountains on a cold December morning, the world blanketed in fresh snow. Samuel Chen and his wife stood as witnesses, along with Mrs. Bailey and several other townspeople who had come to respect Nathaniel over the years. Even Thomas Garrett was there, standing at the back of the small church with a sour expression. Eliza wore her best wool dress and a sprig of dried wildflowers Nathaniel had saved from autumn. He wore clean buckskins and had trimmed his hair and beard. When he took her hands in his and spoke his vows, his voice was steady and sure. I promise to love you through every season, to protect you, provide for you, and stand beside you through whatever comes. You are my heart, Eliza, today and always. Eliza's voice shook with emotion as she made her own promises. I promise to love you with all that I am, to build a life with you in these mountains, to stand with you through hardship and joy. You have given me a home, Nathaniel, not just a place to live, but a place to belong. The preacher pronounced them husband and wife, and when Nathaniel kissed her, the small congregation burst into applause. Eliza felt happiness bubble up inside her like a spring. They celebrated with a meal at Bailey's boarding house, and Samuel Chen surprised them with a beautiful quilt his wife had made, a wedding gift pieced together in shades of blue and green. For your home, Mrs. Chen said in her soft voice. May it keep you warm through many winters. As they rode back up the mountain in the afternoon, Eliza wrapped in her warm coat and a blanket. Besides, she felt like she was riding into her future rather than fleeing her past. Nathaniel kept looking over at her, his face bright with joy despite the cold. Happy wife? He asked. Happier than I ever imagined possible, husband. That night, their wedding night, Nathaniel carried her over the threshold of the cabin as tradition demanded. He set her down gently, and they stood in the firelight, suddenly shy with each other despite their earlier certainty. I want you to know, Nathaniel said quietly, there is no rush for anything. We have all the time in the world. Eliza smiled and reached up to touch his face. "I'm not afraid, not of you, not of this." He kissed her then with a reverence that made her heart ache. When he lifted her and carried her to his room, to their room now, Eliza went willingly, eagerly. He was gentle and patient, and when they finally came together as husband and wife, Eliza felt complete in a way she never had before. Afterward, wrapped in his arms with her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, she whispered, "I love you, Nathaniel Cross. I love you, Eliza Cross." He tightened his arms around her. "Every season, I meant that." Winter deepened around them, but inside the cabin, they built their own warmth. The days took on a peaceful rhythm. Nathaniel continued his traplines, and Eliza managed their home with growing confidence and skill. But now, when he returned each afternoon, he would sweep her into his arms and kiss her until she was breathless. They would work side by side, then share meals filled with conversation and laughter. In the evenings, they sat by the fire, Nathaniel reading aloud from the books he had accumulated over the years while Eliza worked on sewing projects. Sometimes they simply talked, sharing stories of their pasts, their dreams for the future. "I want children," Nathaniel said one snowy evening. "A whole cabin full of them, if we are blessed." "How many is a cabin full?" Eliza teased. 4 or 5, enough to make the place lively." He grinned. "Think you can handle that, city girl?" "I think I can handle anything with you beside me." January brought bitter cold and heavy snows. Some days, Nathaniel could not check all his trap lines because the drifts were too deep. They spent those days working around the cabin together, and Eliza treasured the extra time with him. He taught her to shoot, setting up targets behind the barn and patiently correcting her stance until she could hit the center more often than not. "You are a natural," he praised. "Better shot than half the men in Bitterroot." "I have a good teacher." One morning in late January, Eliza woke feeling strange. Her stomach rolled uneasily, and when she tried to stand, dizziness swept over her. Nathaniel, already awake and dressing, noticed immediately. "Eliza, what is wrong?" "I do not know. I feel queasy." He was at her side in an instant, his hand on her forehead. "No fever. Did you eat something that disagreed with you?" Eliza thought back over the past week. The tiredness she had attributed to hard work, the way certain smells had been bothering her, the tenderness in her breasts. Realization dawned slowly, then all at once. "Nathaniel," she said wonderingly, "I think I might be with child." His face went through a series of expressions. Shock, then dawning comprehension, then pure joy. "Truly?" "I cannot be certain yet, but the signs are there. We have been married less than 2 months, but it is possible." Nathaniel let out a whoop of joy and picked her up, spinning her around despite her protests. "A baby! We are going to have a baby!" "Nathaniel, put me down before I am sick on you." He set her down immediately, contrite. Sorry. What do you need? Should you rest? Are you in pain?" His concern was endearing. "I'm fine. Just a bit queasy. It will pass, but you're going to have to be less exuberant about this." "I'm going to be a father." He said it like a prayer. "Eliza, I'm going to be a father." She laughed despite her unsettled stomach. "Yes, you are, assuming I am right about this." Over the following weeks, it became clear she was indeed right. The morning sickness persisted, and her body began to change in small but noticeable ways. Nathaniel became impossibly protective, trying to do all the heavy work himself despite her protests. "You should not be hauling water in your condition." "My condition does not make me fragile. Women have been having babies since the dawn of time while still doing their work." "But you are not just any woman. You are my wife, carrying my child. Let me take care of you." His earnestness made it impossible to be annoyed. Eliza compromised, accepting his help with the heavier tasks while insisting on maintaining her other responsibilities. As winter began to loosen its grip, and March brought the first hints of spring, they made plans for the future. Nathaniel wanted to expand the cabin, adding another room for the baby, and eventually more rooms for the siblings he hoped would follow. "We will need a bigger garden too," Eliza said, "and perhaps some goats for milk once the baby is weaned." They spent hours planning, dreaming aloud about the life they would build. Nathaniel's earlier words about wanting her for every season had proven true. He cherished her in spring as the snow melted and new green appeared. He cherished her as summer came and her belly began to round with their growing child. In June, Samuel Chen and his wife made the journey up to the cabin to check on them. Mrs. Chen brought herbs and teas to help with the pregnancy, and she examined Eliza with practiced hands. "Healthy," she pronounced. "Baby comes in early autumn, I think. September, maybe October." "Everything is well?" Nathaniel asked anxiously. "Very well. Your wife is strong. She will do fine." They stayed for dinner, and over the meal, Samuel mentioned Thomas Garrett. "He left Bitterroot in February, headed further north. I heard he tried to convince another woman to winter with him, but word had spread about his reputation. No one would go." "Good," Nathaniel said firmly. "Man like that has no business around decent people." After the Chens left, Nathaniel held Eliza close. "I am grateful every day that you chose me instead of him. It was the easiest choice I ever made." Summer passed in a golden haze. Eliza's belly grew round and full, and Nathaniel loved to place his hands on it, marveling when he felt the baby kick. He talked to their child constantly, telling stories, singing old songs his mother had taught him. "What if the baby cannot hear you yet?" Eliza teased. "Then I'm getting practice for when they can." He finished the new room in August, working long hours to have it ready. Eliza sewed baby clothes and blankets, preparing a small cradle Nathaniel had carved from pine. The cabin felt full of anticipation, waiting for the new life that would soon join them. In early September, as the aspens began to turn gold on the mountainsides, Eliza went into labor. Nathaniel had ridden to fetch Mrs. Chen 2 days earlier, unwilling to risk being unprepared. The older woman had agreed to stay until the baby came, and now she took charge with calm efficiency. "Walk," she instructed Eliza. "Movement helps. Nathaniel, boil water and stay out of the way unless I call you." The labor was long and hard. Eliza had known it would be, but nothing quite prepared her for the reality of it. Through the pain and exhaustion, she clung to Nathaniel's hand when Mrs. Chen finally allowed him back in the room. He murmured encouragement, his face pale but his voice steady. "You can do this. You are the strongest person I know. I am right here. I am not going anywhere." As dawn broke over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Eliza gave one final push, and their baby entered the world with a lusty cry. "A boy!" Mrs. Chen announced, wrapping the infant in soft blankets. "A strong, healthy boy." She placed him in Eliza's arms, and Eliza stared down at the tiny red face in wonder. He had a shock of dark hair, and when he opened his eyes, they were the same deep brown as his father's. "Hello, little one," she whispered. Nathaniel, tears streaming down his face, reached out with one finger to touch his son's tiny hand. The baby's fingers curled around his father's in an instinctive grip. "He is perfect," Nathaniel breathed. "Eliza, he is perfect. You're amazing. I love you so much." They named him Samuel, after the man who had been kind to Eliza when she first arrived in Bitterroot. Samuel Chen was deeply honored when they told him at the baptism 2 weeks later. Life with a baby was exhausting but joyful. Samuel had healthy lungs and used them frequently, especially at night. Nathaniel would walk the floor with him, singing softly until the baby settled. During the day, Eliza would work with Samuel, strapped to her chest in a sling Mrs. Chen had shown her how to make. "He likes the movement," Nathaniel observed. "Takes after his mother that way." As Samuel grew, so did their love for each other and for their mountain home. Nathaniel had been right that first day in Bitterroot. Thomas Garrett had wanted Eliza only for winter company, a convenience to be discarded when spring came. But Nathaniel wanted her for every season, and he proved it in countless ways every single day. When Samuel was 6 months old, spring was returning to the mountains, Eliza stood in the doorway of their cabin, watching Nathaniel teach their son to touch the soft nose of Honey the mare. Samuel squealed with delight, and Nathaniel's laughter rang out across the clearing. "Mama, come see," Nathaniel called. "He loves the horses already." Eliza walked over, and Nathaniel wrapped his free arm around her, pulling her close. "Happy?" he asked, the same question he had asked on their wedding day. "Happier than I ever dreamed possible," she answered honestly. "You have given me everything, Nathaniel, a home, a family, a purpose, love that never wavers. You have given me the same. You and Samuel, you are my whole world." They stood together in the spring sunshine, their son between them, And Eliza thought about the choice she had made that autumn day in Bitterroot. She had trusted her instincts and chosen the man who wanted her for more than just winter convenience. She had chosen the man who saw her as a partner, an equal, someone to cherish through every season. The years that followed proved Nathaniel's constancy. They had 3 more children, 2 daughters and another son, and the cabin rang with laughter and life. Nathaniel expanded their home twice more, adding rooms and a larger front porch where they would sit in the evenings watching their children play. He taught all their children to ride, to shoot, to respect the wilderness and understand its rhythms. Eliza taught them to read and cipher, to cook and garden, to value kindness and hard work. Together, they built a legacy in those mountains. Samuel grew tall and strong like his father, eventually taking over the trap lines when Nathaniel's joints began to ache with age. Their eldest daughter, Margaret, married a rancher from the valley and gave them grandchildren. The younger children stayed close to home, building their own cabins within a few miles, creating a small community of Crosses in the high country. Through it all, through every season of life, Nathaniel loved Eliza with the same steadfast devotion he had promised on their wedding day. On winter evenings, they would sit by the fire, as they had in those early days, his arm around her, her head on his shoulder. "Remember when we met?" Eliza would say. "When you intervened with Thomas Garrett? Best day of my life, seeing you step off that stage. I knew right then you were meant to be mine. I knew when you promised me fair wages and a lock on my door. You saw me as a person, not just a convenience. You were never a convenience. From the first moment, you were everything." On their 25th wedding anniversary, their children threw a celebration. The cabin and surrounding area filled with family and friends from Bitterroot and beyond. Samuel Chen, now elderly but still sharp-eyed, raised a glass in toast. To Nathaniel and Eliza Cross, 25 years of marriage, 4 children, and more love than most people see in a lifetime. May you have 25 more. Nathaniel squeezed Eliza's hand. She was 50 now, her auburn hair streaked with silver, her face lined with the marks of a life well lived. To him, she was as beautiful as the day she arrived in Bitterroot. "To many more years," he agreed. "Every season with you is a gift." As the party continued around them, Nathaniel pulled Eliza aside to the porch where they could look out at the mountains bathed in autumn gold, the same mountains that had witnessed their first meeting, their first kiss, the birth of their children. "What are you thinking?" Eliza asked. "That I am the luckiest man alive, that choosing you was the easiest decision I ever made, and marrying you was the best thing I ever did." "You saved me," Eliza said softly. "That day in Bitterroot, you saved me from a fate I do not like to imagine. You gave me a life beyond my wildest dreams." "We saved each other," Nathaniel corrected. "I was alone, convinced I would spend my whole life that way. Then, you arrived and made me believe in hope again, in love, in the possibility of a future bright enough to chase away all the lonely years." Eliza turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had been her husband, her partner, her love for a quarter century. His hair was silver now, his face weathered by years in the mountains, but his eyes still held the same warmth and devotion they had shown that first day. "I love you, Nathaniel Cross. Every season, just as you promised." "Every season, just as I meant it." He kissed her softly. "Come on, wife. Our family is waiting." They returned to the celebration hand in hand, surrounded by the life they had built together in the wild Montana mountains. A life born from a chance meeting and a choice made in faith. A life that had grown and flourished through every season, rooted in love that never wavered. In the end, that was what mattered most. Not the hardships they had endured or the challenges they had overcome, but the love they had chosen and nurtured through every season of their lives together. Thomas Garrett had wanted a woman for winter only, for convenience and comfort during the cold months. But Nathaniel Cross had wanted Eliza for every season, for a lifetime of partnership and love. And in the wild Montana mountains, surrounded by family and the wilderness they both cherished, that was exactly what they found. Every season, every year, every moment together was a gift neither ever took for granted. From autumn to winter, to spring to summer, and back again, Their love remained constant, a fire that never dimmed regardless of the changing seasons outside their door. As the sun set over the mountains that anniversary evening, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple, Eliza stood once more in Nathaniel's embrace and knew with absolute certainty that she had made the right choice. She had chosen love over convenience, partnership over transaction, and a man who saw her as his equal rather than his servant. She had chosen every season over just one winter, and in doing so had found a love that would last all the seasons of her life. In the wild Montana mountains, in a cabin built by strong hands and filled with laughter and love, Eliza Hartwell Cross had found her home. Not just a place to live, but a place to belong. Not just a man to survive with, but a partner to truly live alongside. And as the stars emerged one by one in the darkening sky, as the sounds of celebration faded to comfortable quiet, as Nathaniel's arms tightened around her in the way they had 10,000 times before, Eliza smiled, because this was her life, her choice, her love. Every season, every moment, every heartbeat, forever and always, in the wild mountain west, where a woman who had nothing found everything, and a mountain man who had been alone discovered he never had to be lonely again. Together, they had built something that would endure long after they were gone, a legacy of love that would live on in their children and grandchildren and the generations yet to come. The trapper had wanted her for winter only, but the mountain man had wanted her for every season of life, and she had chosen him without hesitation, without regret, without ever looking back. It was a choice that had blessed them both beyond measure, transforming two solitary souls into one unbreakable partnership. And in the end, that was the greatest treasure the mountains had to offer, greater than gold or furs or any earthly riches, the treasure of love freely given and gratefully received, the treasure of building a life together, season by season, year by year, until the end of all seasons. In the wild Montana mountains, beneath skies that stretched forever and stars that blazed with ancient light, Nathaniel and Eliza Cross lived out their days in peace and prosperity and abiding love. Their story became legend in Bitterroot, told around fires on cold winter nights, a tale of how true love could bloom even in the harshest wilderness. And every time someone told that story, they ended it the same way. The trapper wanted her for winter only, but the mountain man wanted her for every season of life. And she, brave and wise, chose the man who saw her worth and loved her without condition or reservation. It was a choice that changed everything, a moment that rippled out across decades, creating waves of love and family and belonging that would never fade. In choosing Nathaniel, Eliza had chosen her future. And in choosing Eliza, Nathaniel had chosen his heart. Together, they lived every season to its fullest, finding joy in the simple moments and strength in facing the hard ones side by side. Their love was a beacon in the wilderness, proof that even in the roughest, wildest places, gentleness and devotion could not only survive but thrive. Years later, when their grandchildren asked how they had known they were meant to be together, Eliza would smile and take Nathaniel's weathered hand in hers. "I knew because he offered me respect when I had nothing. He saw me as a person worthy of fair treatment, not just a convenience. And your grandfather knew because he had been waiting his whole life for someone to share the mountains with, someone who would love this wild place as much as he did. I knew because my heart recognized its home," Nathaniel would add, squeezing her hand. "The moment I saw your grandmother step off that stage, something in me just knew. And I have thanked the good Lord every day since that she chose me." The grandchildren would nestle closer, wanting to hear more, and the story would continue, passed down through the generations as all the best stories are. A love story set in the wild Montana mountains, where a city girl became a mountain woman and a lonely trapper became a devoted husband and father. Where winter company was rejected in favor of a lifetime partnership. Where every season brought new joys and challenges, all faced together with courage and unwavering love. Where two people built something that would last far beyond their own years, a legacy written not in gold or land, but in love and family, and the strength of bonds that could never be broken. And on quiet evenings, when the wind whispered through the pines and the stars shone bright over the mountains, if you listened carefully, You could almost hear the echo of their laughter, the sound of Nathaniel's deep voice telling stories, the gentle melody of Eliza's responses. The spirit of their love still lingered in those mountains, a testament to what could be built when two people chose each other, not for convenience or necessity, but for love that would endure through every season of life. The cabin still stood, maintained by their descendants, a monument to that first brave choice and all the choices that followed. Inside, the furniture they had used remained, the bed they had shared, the table where they had eaten countless meals, the fireplace that had warmed them through decades of winters. And visitors who came to see the historic Cross cabin often reported feeling something there, a sense of peace and belonging, as though the love that had filled those rooms for so many years had soaked into the very walls and would never truly fade. Because true love never does fade. It transforms. It endures. It becomes something greater than itself. It lives on in children and grandchildren, in stories told and retold, in the very air of a place where happiness and devotion once flourished. Nathaniel and Eliza Cross lived long lives, dying within months of each other in their late 70s, their hands clasped together until the very end. They were buried on a hillside overlooking the cabin, beneath aspens that turned golden every autumn, a reminder of the season when they first met. Their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren would visit those graves often, bringing flowers in summer and holly in winter, telling them news of the family, keeping them connected to the living even in death. And always, always, they would end their visits the same way, repeating the words that had defined Nathaniel and Eliza's love from the very beginning. Every season, they would whisper, not just winter, but every season of life. It was a promise, a prayer, and a testament to love that had conquered loneliness, poverty, and the wild isolation of mountain life. Love that had created something beautiful and lasting from what had started as a desperate situation and a leap of faith. The trapper had wanted her for winter only, seeing her as a solution to a seasonal problem, but the mountain man had wanted her for every season of life, recognizing her as the answer to his heart's deepest longing. And she had chosen wisely, building a life that exceeded her wildest dreams in a place she had never imagined calling home. In the wild Montana mountains, where the wind sang through pine forests and the seasons painted the landscape in ever-changing beauty, their story lived on. A reminder that love, when chosen with courage and nurtured with devotion, could transform everything, could turn loneliness into belonging, strangers into family, and a harsh wilderness into paradise. Every season of life, they had loved each other. Through spring's renewal and summer's abundance, through autumn's harvest and winter's rest, their devotion never wavered. It was a love story worthy of the wild Montana mountains, as enduring as the peaks themselves, as constant as the turning of seasons, as infinite as the stars that watched over their mountain home. And so their story ends where it began, in the wild west town of Bitterroot, Montana Territory, where a woman with nothing chose a man who offered everything. And together they built a love that would echo through the ages. A love for every season, for all time, forever and always in the mountains they called home.